The reason I think women struggle with this is that generally their abuser is still alive. Yours isn't alive. Yeah. What's the first experience that you can recall of him laying hands on you?
The first time I can remember hands on me, he grabbed my arm so hard I had bruises on my arm, hand mark bruises on my arm. The first weekend that we met, that was that honeymoon weekend, he also introduced me to cocaine and ecstasy in the same weekend, which I'd never done anything but drink some alcohol, right? So I'm in a whole new world.
What does really bad look like? I mean, what's the first time where you went, wait a minute, this is a little more than grabbing an arm. This seemed to be really crossing a line.
It progressed to the point where he grabbed me, threw me on the grass and sat on top of me and hit me back and forth. And his son came out of his bedroom. He's about 11 or 12 at the time. And all I can hear is, "Dad, stop, Dad, stop, Dad, stop." So he got to see that. My earrings were ripped out of my ears completely. I couldn't hear for probably about 3 days. I took a couple suitcases, left everything from that last 8 years, and that was the last day.
If I were your abuser and I came back from the dead and I was sitting here in front of you and I couldn't say anything to you, but you had the opportunity to ask one question and say one additional thing, what question would you ask and what would you say? All right, Jen DeTracy, welcome to the Roller Coaster Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We just had your husband on, and he's an amazing man, and you're very fortunate to have him. We're going to spend some time today talking about a topic that is really difficult to talk about. And I've had the opportunity to interview women in the past around this. And I've always chosen not to because they have a fear of going too deep on the story. And the nature of this podcast is that the guest doesn't hold back. And that is domestic abuse and being abused by a spouse or a significant other. The reason I think women struggle with this is that generally their abuser is still alive. And so for them to go into detail about their experience being abused puts them at risk of that person coming back into their life, regardless of restraining orders or anything else that might be at play. Yours isn't alive. And so this allows us to go deep here. So I want to ask you this to get into this. I don't think that, like many things, domestic abuse starts with physical abuse. I think it starts much smaller than that, typically verbal or other things. So I want you to describe the moment that you realize maybe something's happening here. For the first time, you realize that your spouse might be an abusive person. Can you recall a story?
Sure, absolutely. And, my hope is that some of these signs, it probably was 3 years, maybe even 4 years into our relationship where it actually became physical. But the emotional side of it can be just as hard on a woman. And, our story was kind of a Cinderella story. He was 12 years older than me. I was 21 at the time. I was teaching a soccer camp, and his son was in the soccer camp, and he would come and he'd juggle, and eventually he asked me if I golfed, and he actually asked my sister and I. And my sister said, "You go. You think he's cute, go with him and do that." And he just had me head over heels from the beginning. Handsome, nice, took me out on his boat the first weekend, took me to Seafair in Seattle, Washington, which is once a year. And it was just the most incredible weekend. And I mean, one weekend in, and I'm hooked, right? And eventually it was, a drawer in the bathroom. And then it was one place for some stuff for overnight. And, and eventually I'm starting to move in, and all is good. I'm thinking, like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm 21 and I've never lived out of the house. So this is me moving from my parents' house into his house. And I remember there was a time I was standing in the laundry room and he said, "What time is it?" I looked at my watch and I said, it's time to go." And he flew off the handle. "That's not the question I asked you. I asked you, what time is it? You don't tell me what you think I want to hear. You answer the question." And I just went, whoa, what was that? Now, I'd never experienced anything like that. I didn't have
Mm.
anything abusive growing up. My parents are a whole other story, but they were not abusive. And I'd never experienced this. So I just thought it was weird. I thought, man, he's having an off day. But honestly, that was a first sign. There's many of those, but that's one I can remember.
Mm. How does this start? How does this go from, sort of this one-off thing to like starting to become a pattern? And what are you realizing is happening over the impending, months and years as this verbal abuse starts to ramp up?
My family honestly noticed things before I did.
Mm.
And I denied a lot of it because there's a lot of honeymoon periods. But just like you said, the pattern starts getting closer and closer to get. That's what happens is it starts really far apart and then starts getting closer. Same thing when physical abuse starts to come in. It's a one-off and then it gets a little close. And then there's a honeymoon and then it gets a little closer.
Mm.
Um, we had a dog, Bella, sweet, sweet puppy that we got. And she got up on the counter and was eating some food. And he threw her out the door. And we had one of those decks with slats and, the fence posts kind of decks. And she got her foot caught in it. And she was still a puppy. And she broke her leg. And, just took no personal responsibility whatsoever that he picked her up off the counter and threw her out the door. And we lost her in surgery. We lost her in surgery. She had some kind of stomach bug that she didn't wake up. So there was things like that. Little things like you're using too much shampoo in the shower. I don't think you respect me, that it's my shampoo, that you didn't buy the shampoo. I mean, I know this is silly. Like you're listening to this and I'm listening to this. I'm like, these are really silly, insignificant things,
Mhm.
but they start to add up. And then I got pregnant with our first baby. And, as a woman, you feel a little bit locked in. At that point, we weren't married. But here's another thing that he did, and this is a huge sign, is that I was selling real estate at the time, and I was doing really well. As a 21-year-old, I was doing extremely well. I was working for John Buchan Homes, and he did a lot of traveling for his career. He was in network marketing and he had an international business. It's how I learned network marketing, and we'll get into that later. But he was extremely successful. He traveled internationally, and people loved him. He was the life of the party. He was on stage talking. Everybody wanted to know who he was. He was the man. I did not build that, but he wanted me to travel around with him. So he had me quit real estate and said, "You don't need to do that. I'd love for you to come around with me." Now, I took it as an honor, like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do this. And we're going to go travel the world. Our daughter was 3 months old, and we went on a 3-month trip around Germany and Austria and Ireland and all these amazing places. So I wouldn't change any of it. When we talk about what I learned through this, I wouldn't change any of it for the world. I wouldn't change, my beautiful children. But it started getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. What's the first experience that you can recall of him laying hands on you?
The first, there was a couple doors knocked down before there was actually a hand on me. Because I remember when he used to yell, my reaction was to get away from it. I didn't want to yell back, so I would go lock myself in my office or lock myself in an area and say, "Just leave me alone. Just you go cool off. You leave me alone." Well, he started kicking down the doors, and there. This is, I try not to get emotional, but we'll talk about the house that Nate and I, my husband, live in now. We actually bought the house back that my ex and I built 25 years ago. There's a door in that house right now that I keep telling him I need to replace this door. The whole house I'm fine with. But the master bedroom door has this piece in it because it was kicked down. And I can
Wow.
still, and to this day, I can see the piece in it. And we've only lived there 11 months. We just bought the house back. But I'm like, wow. When I saw the door, I went, oh my gosh, that's one of those doors he kicked down. When our daughter was, no, actually, I think it was I can't remember if it was Allie or Griffin, but I was sitting in my office and he was upset about something. And I can remember him coming and just kicking the chair out from underneath me, kid in hand, right? And us both just toppling onto the floor and me hitting my head. I'm just doing everything I can not to have the baby get hurt. So, and to that point, still not a hand on me. Doors kicked down, kicking chairs out from underneath me. The first time I can remember hands on me, we lived in Arizona and I was going to a tennis tournament. I don't even remember what we were arguing. I don't remember what was going on. But he grabbed my arm so hard, I had bruises on my arm, hand mark bruises on my arm. And also I had a bruise on my leg from falling off the chair. So now I've got these bruises and if it's not, and I'm thinking, I just need to hide the bruises. That's what's going through. I'm like, I just need to hide the bruises. I got to go to a tennis tournament. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I get to the tennis tournament, not realizing how shook up I am. I forgot to put on underwear. Here I am at a tennis tournament with a skirt, and I'm supposed to go play tennis. And I forgot to put on underwear. And I was like, that was the first time I told a friend. I was like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, we got to go to Target and get me some underwear. And then she goes, why? So I showed her my arm, and that was the first person I actually showed what was going on. But I said, but it was no big deal. We were in a big fight, and I always defended him.
Yeah,
And here's the other thing I would start doing. He would start saying, you did this. And he was so manipulative. I would actually start to think, did I do that? Knowing clear well that I did not do what he's saying, but he would say, you did this. And he would keep saying it over and over in a way that could actually change what you thought about a situation and what actually happened.
So I think, like any domestic abuse, it starts with seemingly an insignificant moment of verbal abuse, and then it ramps up and kicking chairs and grabbing your arm. And I'm assuming there's no fairy tale ending where he stops and magically improves. Before we get to sort of some of these more violent stories, do you think that it's possible that the victim of abuse, you in this story, in this scenario, could have done anything to change him and to make him less abusive, like the way you react when or getting him help, or like, is there anything to actually change an abuser, or is it like, if it's in there, and it's bound to happen at some point?
That's a hard question. I believe anyone can change. I do. In this case, and in most of the cases that I've seen, it continues to get worse because of the comfort level of the situation.
It's more
And
normalized.
it's more normalized. They're getting away with it. Could I have reacted differently? Sure. I'm not could I have reacted differently? Absolutely. But think of the times that I actually locked myself away to try and let him cool down. he couldn't handle that. He would come knock the door down. And so, and then if I confronted him, it would be even worse. So that's a really, Tyler, that's a hard question to answer. I think it's a case by case. Also, I think it depends on, did he grow up with, did man or woman, and men can be abused
Sure.
and women can be abused.
Yeah.
So I do believe that there's women out there that are abusive too. I mean, the stories I've told you so far aren't the worst stories. And for some people, they might be like, oh, well, maybe you grabbed your arm a little too hard. When you're in it, also, I didn't feel like a victim.
Yeah.
I didn't know. My family started coming to me and I'm like, no, you know what? He gets really intense sometimes. And, when the first weekend that we met, that was that honeymoon weekend, he also introduced me to cocaine and ecstasy in the same weekend, which I'd never done anything but drink some alcohol, right? So I'm in a whole new world, right? I'm in a whole new world. But most of the time we were together, I was pregnant because we had a good year together, but then I was pregnant with 2 babies. I remember being at people's houses, and the fact that I even think that it was normal then, I think back on it, I'm like, I can't believe I did these things. I remember being at parties till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and I would sleep in other people's beds. Just go, like, where's a bedroom I can sleep in? Because I'm pregnant. I want to go home. I want to sleep, and they're partying, right? So I just thought I was being the good girlfriend. I'll just go sleep upstairs. I'm fine. You guys have fun. I'm good. But I was also I was a straight A student. I was an athlete. I've always been really good at whatever I put my mind to. I'm a strong, independent person. So a strong, independent person doesn't want to feel like a victim, right?
Yeah.
They don't, that wasn't something that crossed my mind until it got really bad.
What does really bad look like? I mean, what's the first time where you went, wait a minute, this is a little more than grabbing an arm. This seemed to be really crossing a line.
Well, sitting on top of me and hitting me is, think of yourself being a punching bag and someone sitting on top of you and hitting you with their hand side to side, back and forth. I'll describe the time that I left for good. We did a lot of entertaining. We had just had a party. Everyone had left and he was really drunk and I was not. I wanted to go to bed and we had just finished our pool in the back and he wanted to go lay out on a raft in the pool. And our argument was around, you can't go lay out on the raft. You're too drunk. You're going to drown. And I don't want to stay up and watch you. That's what that's what the argument's about. And it progressed from there. Don't tell me what to do. If I want to lay out here, I'm fine. Go to bed. And I literally can't. He's going to fall off this. He's going to, pass out. And it progressed to the point where he grabbed me, threw me on the grass and sat on top of me and hit me back and forth. And his son came out of his bedroom. He's about 11 or 12 at the time. And all I can hear is, Dad, stop, Dad, stop, Dad, stop. So he got to see that. My earrings were ripped out of my ears completely. And I couldn't hear for probably about 3 days. Faintly. I could hear faintly, but I had ringing in my ears. I fled after that. So he was sitting on top of me. He changed and left. I don't know where he went, but I remember coming back and his jeans were in the closet and his jeans had big mud stains where he sat on top of me and his knees were on the ground and in each side. And I went to, I knew that some friends were up, a couple friends that were at the party. I went to their house and I'm crying and already bruises are all over my face. And he was a former police officer and he's like, we're calling the police. I'm like, no, we're not calling the police. I'd never called the police. He goes, we're calling the police. So this is the, kind of my defining moment of, oh crap, this is getting real. The police are going to get involved. because they
Yeah.
hadn't been involved,
Yeah.
right? And so he calls the police. They come. They take Jason away in a cop car that night. Actually, that's why his jeans were in the closet when I got back, because the cops came and got him and they brought him to jail. And so that was a couple days before Thanksgiving. They didn't let him come back to the house until I had left, and my brother flew in and helped me grab some stuff. I had the 2 babies. I took a couple suitcases, left everything from that last 8 years, and that was the last day. I didn't think I was going to get emotional, but my brother was pretty amazing during that time.
How does he, I mean, do you chalk up his ability to get there as a person, where he's mounting you and he's with 2 hands swatting you around like a fly? I mean, do you chalk that up to the fact that he was drunk, or do you chalk that up to the fact that he was a bad man that was abusive? And, how do you reconcile that?
Well, first of all, I have forgiven him. And I want everybody listening, if you're listening and, my life and how it is today and everything that all that struggle and everything I learned from that, and how I help other women, and not even abused women, but just how I help women today, is because I got through that. And so, do I think he's just a bad man? No, I actually think in his heart he wanted to be a really good guy. I really do. I believe that his mom was slightly bipolar. I think that some of it would come out of nowhere. And he was never actually diagnosed bipolar. But the first time I met his mom, and she was older at the time, I only met her a couple times because they didn't have a close relationship. And she would be talking, and I'd go, did she just talk about 2 things or 3 things in one sentence? Does she even know what she's talking about right now? Where somebody loses their train of thought and they're not making sense. And I thought, well, that was weird. She's a little, I was like, she's a little bit off. And then when I started to, after I had left, and when I started researching domestic violence and started really looking at his behavior, he could be the most loving, compassionate person to people. Like I said, remember, he was the life of the party. People loved him. And so one of the hard things for me too is to come out and say this guy is abusive to me. People are like, oh, Jason, no way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a hard thing for some women too, is a lot of times they are the nice, cool guy in front of everybody else. And so, and you don't want to say that about your spouse or your loved one. That's not, it's not something
embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. Yeah. Because they're a reflection of who you are as well. And so, knowing it was a reflection of me, to this day, I think back and I think of all the things, but I think of all the good things. And still to this day, there's more good than there was bad. Oh my gosh, Allie is 25 now. He loved that little girl. Like, even though he kicked the chair out from underneath us, but he did. He really did. And he would just turn on a dime. And that's the scary part. That's the scary part is you've got a good person with a good heart that all of a sudden it just turns at a snap of the fingers. Yeah. It's very unpredictable. And what happens is as it goes on throughout the years, you start to sense it a little bit more. You get better at it. And it's just, how do you deal with it? You walk on eggshells. Sometimes you're just like going through life, and then you're like, oh, this week, we're walking on eggshells this week. Yeah. It's not a good week. But anything can bring it on. And you just don't even know when it's going to happen.
Did you ever I mean, talk to him again after he got taken to jail that night and restraining orders? And like, did you maintain any sort of relationship after that?
He tried. Um, he tried to make my life absolutely miserable as best as he possibly could. Um, no, I had restraining orders. He he tried to absolutely tear apart everything that I valued, everything that I loved, everything. He wanted my life to be absolutely miserable because I left him.
Yeah.
I remember him calling me up one time, belligerent, drunk, just, I mean, not even caring that we had a restraining order. And it's interesting that I answer, right? Because I don't have to answer. And I answered, and he told me that I wished I had sex with my dad. I mean, these are kind of, and I said, and he's drunk, and he's, because I had a good relationship with my dad, and I used to speak very highly of my dad. And I think sometimes I used to say, I wish you acted more like my dad, right? I wish you could take some lessons from my dad because he was such a good dad. And so his thing was, well, you were so close with your dad. You why don't you go be with him? You wish you had sex with your dad. I'm like, how insane are you right now? But again, why did I answer the phone? Why do I let that, and I'm going to relate this to anything we do in life. Sometimes if we're not protecting what goes in our mind, we're allowing things in that are making our situation worse. At that time, I didn't need to answer those phone calls. I've learned now I am very particular, and when I'm helping someone else in their life, I'm very particular with how are you protecting your mind? How are you protecting your mind? What are you letting in? When we get into nutrition, I talk, our brain actually has a blood-brain barrier. It doesn't let certain nutrients in to protect itself.
Mm-hmm.
But with the voices that we let in and the people that we let in, we have to be intentional about how we protect our mind. And through that whole process, I had to learn that. I had to learn, why are you letting that into your mind? You don't need to let that in. And so I got better and better at it.
If I were your abuser and I came back from the dead and I was sitting here in front of you and I couldn't say anything to you, but you had the opportunity to ask one question and say one additional thing, what question would you ask and what would you say?
I don't know I would ask him a question. I think I would take the opportunity to tell him that I forgive him, because I think that he's up there right now. And I think he did ask for forgiveness before he died, because we'll go into how he died. I don't know if we'll go into that, but I do think that he's in heaven. I don't think that he wasn't forgiven. I think that he went to heaven even through all of this. And I just want him to know that I forgive him.
It's amazing.
I don't want to know anything else.
That requires a lot of, just self, medicating and healing on your behalf to get to a place where you could forgive a man who did that to you. And so I respect you a lot for that. I don't necessarily care to talk about how he died. You did mention it was interesting. I mean, he drove a car off a cliff in Germany.
Yeah. Have you heard of Oktoberfest?
Yeah.
Yeah. He fled to Germany, got in some trouble here in the United States, and took off. And I got a phone call one day, and it was one of his sisters. And she said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No, but what did he do? Tell me what's going on." And Beth said he drove his car off a cliff coming home from Oktoberfest. It was about a 5-minute drive from the train to get home in the car, but nobody found him for a couple, I think it was almost 48 hours. He was almost dead, and they had to cut open his brain to allow it to swell. and he was in a coma for almost 6 months. Don't, I hate saying this. It would have been so much better for him to die at that point. And I feel like, I don't know if God needed to have him suffer or what happened, but from the point that he woke up, he was never the same.
Yeah.
If you talked to him, you could tell he had a major brain injury. He had a tracheotomy. He came home. He was always a very fit person. He looked kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger body type thing. I like bodybuilders, as you can tell. And he gained about 150 pounds and had a trach, was mentally not all there. But then he started using again, and he started falling down because he was using again. He already had a traumatic brain injury. And one of the falls, he completely lost his equilibrium and he could not stand ever again. He went years in a nursing home, having to be strapped down and not being able to feed himself, not being able to stand. I didn't let the kids see him that whole time. Like there's no way I was going to. And to this day, it'll be interesting to see if they will listen to this podcast, because I've never talked to them about any of this stuff.
Wow.
They know their dad died of drugs and alcohol. And it's been a blessing, because neither one of them have drug and alcohol problems, because they don't want to have happened to them what happened to their dad. But that's what they know. They don't know. I think now that they're 22 and 25, they know a little bit about, it was a little bit abusive, but they don't know to the degree. And I don't think they need to know to the degree that they've also never asked me. But those last years of his life, it just felt like punishment. And it was, or maybe that time was for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because in that time, I started to feel sorry for him. That's when a lot of the forgiveness came in. I started to feel like, you know what, this is too much. Like, he doesn't, out of everything that I had to go through, I became stronger. I became better at being a human being. I became better at business. I became better at relationships. And here he is,
complete opposite.
disintegrating as he leaves the earth.
Yeah.
So, and then he got pneumonia and passed away.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad you shared that. I found that to be relevant. To close the loop on this part of the interview around domestic abuse, maybe two-part question. Like, what signs should women be looking for in early detection of an abuser? And then what do you say to a woman to help her get out of an abusive relationship?
Yeah. Signs are 100% the flying off the handle unexpectedly with things that aren't that, they shouldn't necessarily be that big of a deal, and they become a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I think every couple, let me just preface this, relationships are hard. I don't know any relationship, have you ever had a disagreement with your wife?
Yeah.
Yes. Have voices ever been raised a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
There is a distinction between abuse and, a healthy relationship. You get in a little squabble, you compromise, you hug it out, it doesn't mean that everything is abusive just because you had an argument.
Yeah.
Right. And so noticing the difference, that's where you're like, well, how do you know? Like, am I in an abusive relationship or am I not in an abusive relationship? It becomes more often. That's a sign. It's more of a drastic fly off the handle. It's not just an argument, and there's no compromise. The victim is wrong, period. There is no compromise. There's zero compromise at the end. And you have to believe that how they explain the situation is the situation, or it doesn't end. And that's it.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes more often and it gets worse. Right. It progressively is getting worse over time. The bigger thing is how to leave. I actually just Um, just had a conversation with a sweet lady who is also a single mom who just left her spouse and moved about 5 hours away to get away. And the hardest part is actually separating yourself. That's my advice. You can't half separate yourself. Just like if somebody wants to get into shape, I'm like, you can't, skip first base and second base and expect to make a home run and be in perfect shape, right?
Yeah.
You have to do the work. And in a domestic violence situation, you have to completely sever yourself. Not, but I can take a couple phone calls. Not, but I can do this. No, you have to completely separate yourself. And for me, it took 3 times. I left that third time was the final time, but it wasn't the first time that I left.
Yeah.
And then the last advice I would give is you're embarrassed, so it's hard to ask for support, but you got to do it. You got to surround yourself not with people that allow you to be a martyr.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not with people that allow you to feel sorry for yourself, but you have to surround yourself with people that will help you get your life back on track.
Mm.
And that won't happen immediately either. With anything in life, sometimes you have to step back before you step forward. It has to get worse before it gets better. But knowing that there is a new season coming, a lot of times people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your situation." I like to say, "I'm so happy for you." I'm the opposite. I'll be like, "You know what? I know how hard that was, but I'm so proud of you." Instead of most people go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through." I'm like, "I am so proud of you. I can't wait to see what happens in your next season.
Yeah.
Stay strong." Right? Because the weakness sets in because you know what they do? They get really sweet and nice again. And it makes you want to come back.
That's well said. I want to transition into just, painting the vision for the audience of where you're at today, which seems like a pretty incredible life that you guys have built. And, you spent 2 decades doing direct sales, something like that. Is that
31 years.
Okay. So more than 2 to 3 days, 31 years doing direct sales, which the math isn't mathing sitting in front of you here. I'm like, you can't be that old. But you and Nate both are incredibly youthful in your physiology, but also just in your, the way you communicate and the way you show up, which I think is an amazing quality. So 31 years, and Justin has talked to me about you before, and he has said that you're like one of the best he's ever seen. What does it take to become one of the best, that a guy that I deeply respect and trust, who I think is known as maybe the best or way up there? How do you get that sort of accolade or compliment from a guy like that? How do you become the best in this industry?
Well, that's a loaded question. Being able and willing to fail a lot, being willing to persevere, not until just persevere until it's not, well, if this works in a month or well, if this works in a year, then I'll keep doing it. It's persist until, persevere until. It's get down in the trenches and like it there. A lot of people just want to get up to the mountaintop as quick as they possibly can, which makes it really easy to quit.
Yeah.
Right. I love talking about the backpack and the boulder as I'm talking to people, because a lot of people, especially these days, man, with everything being at our fingertips with phones and social media, and I can call my food to my doorstep, and everything is at the tip of our fingers. But success, John Maxwell says, success is all uphill. And then he adds, all the way. Not it's all uphill sometimes. No, if you want to be successful, it doesn't come from giving it your all for a couple days. It doesn't come from being in the gym in January. It is a constant. And let me put it this way. Consistency doesn't mean hitting home runs either. Why Justin says I'm one of the best is not because I'm like this math. I'm not a home run hitter. I'm a base hitter again and again and again, and lots of strikeouts. Yeah. But also that, remember that protecting your mind part? A lot of people think in our industry, oh, if you just get enough no's, you're going to get the yeses. I also do protect my mind from the no's too. I don't persist with negative people.
Yeah. You just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think like recovery, if you think about sports, it's like one of the greatest attributes of high level professional sports athletes is how quickly they can forget about the missed shot or the missed, swing of a golf club
Not
or the
dwelling
missed
on it.
tackle or the
Yes.
missed throw or the interception, right? It's like, can you quickly recover and reset from, I just made a mistake, and what's in the past is not going to define what I'm going to do now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I absolutely love that. What do you think some of the biggest, I certainly have them myself. Your husband, Nate, and I had a conversation several months ago about me getting involved in Make Wellness, and Justin and I have had several conversations about it. And I have this, I have some hesitancy to doing it. I think that I have some uh, misconceptions about what it is, probably. So what would you say are the biggest misconceptions about the line of business that you're in?
Well, I'm going to throw a question back at you. What is your hesitation, and what do you think your misconception is?
Well, no, it's not. I don't think it is. It is the hesitation, I think, for me. And I think a lot of this has, by the way, been dispelled through conversations with Nate and Justin. So I have less of this for sure today, which is that I have built a reputation around my name that is, I am a certain thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I do this podcast and I build businesses and I'm an entrepreneur and I'm on boards and I coach CEOs. And so it's like, um, one of the thoughts that's been hard for me to get around is, what are people going to think of me knowing that I'm in direct sales, which has sometimes and I think it's a word Nate used, like what was the word you used, Nate? Like an icky connotation
Okay.
towards it in general. And I think what you guys are building at Make Wellness is like sort of really going above and beyond to dispel some of these things, right? But that would be it. It's like, how am I going to be perceived, having worked so hard to build a certain kind of reputation, if people now think that I'm out there trying to convince other people to come and buy product or sell with me or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the bigger misconceptions.
Well, I think whatever we believe to be true, there's always two perspectives of everything.
Yeah.
And I believe with everything inside of me that network marketing is the most extraordinary way for an individual to build a business. I think that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, transform their lives. And I've watched it happen over and over and over again. I think this industry has transformed more people's lives than any other industry out there.
Yeah.
And it's an entrepreneurial industry, just like any other. Everything is sales. I'm looking around here. You bought those Jordans over there, those records over there, this table right here, this couch right here. You bought all these things from someone, right? Everything that we see was purchased. People love to buy things,
Yeah.
right? People don't love to be told what to do, but people do love to buy things. And network marketing is a legitimate business. Sometimes you hear the word pyramid scheme. I'm like, okay, pyramid scheme is where there's no product and there's no service being sold. There's just money exchanging hands, and it goes so far down, and then the next person gets that money. So let's dispel that one. Okay, let's talk multi-level marketing. Okay. I could probably name off 100, maybe more people on our team that earn more income than the person who sponsored them. Why? Because it's a work program. If it's MLM, if I go to Costco or I go to Nordstrom or I go to any corporate structured business and I come in, I don't get to be the CEO.
Yeah.
I got to work my way up. And even if I do work my way up for 40 years at a company,
Yeah.
I'm never going to be the owner of
You'll
somebody
never have
else.
the same opportunity as the
Never.
top people. Yeah.
Right? So we either have an opportunity to build someone else's legacy, which some people are completely okay with that, or we build our own legacy. And entrepreneurs know it's because, hey, I want to be responsible for when I get up. I want to get up at 5 a.m., not because I have to go to work, but because I want to get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the only industry that I've seen people be able to design a life that they truly love. And every time that people are, they talk about this ick factor, or they talk about, a hesitation to be in a type of industry like this, they maybe make a lot of money, but don't have any time. They don't have the time to spend it. They don't have the time to be present in their life, or they don't love what they do, or they don't get to pick their kid up at the bus stop. They don't get to put them to bed at night. They don't get to be a present parent, but yet they look at this industry. They can absolutely do that for them. And they shun it, not because of the industry that it is, but because of what they think of. What is someone going to think about me? Now, I'm not saying this but what if it's not about you?
Yeah.
Right? If you believe that you have value for someone, and we'll get into bioactive peptides, but I've been in nutrition all my life too. And I believe that me coming into someone's life, that they will be better because I was there. And I do that through network marketing. Sometimes we could even use church. People walk into church because they want to be better. And then they leave and they're like, all right, I can do anything that I set my mind to. But nobody actually gives them the path in church. Now you still got to go find your path.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about what we do is people don't have to take this path, but I can help put somebody on the right. I'm like, I have a path. You don't have to choose this path. And I think where the ick factor comes in is that some people push the path. Well, what if we just allow people, we are the messenger, and we allow people to make their own choices? It actually becomes very attractive when I can say, this is why I think it would be incredible for you and your health and your wellness and your finances and your family. Here's the benefits that I see for you and the value I see for you. If you would like to be a part of the team, we'd love to have you. And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
And people are like, you mean if I say no, that's
different.
okay?
Yeah.
Right. But there's people out there, because anybody can do it. They're pushing, no, you got it. No, nobody has to do it. Right. But it for the right people.
Yeah.
It is the most incredible industry.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question,
No,
but
it does.
I think that for the right people that they're willing to work hard, that don't want to take shortcuts. And same thing with nutrition, because I talk nutrition a lot. Business and nutrition for me are kind of like, they're so similar because people want the shortcut. I'm like, if you want to be in incredible shape inside and out, let's talk about how to not take the shortcuts.
Yeah.
You want an incredible life that pays you well, that you get to live how you want to live, don't take shortcuts and don't expect it to happen overnight.
Yeah, one of the things that really clicked for me when I was trying to understand this with Justin early on is, and I think Nate articulated something similar, which was like, this is not a product company. Like you're so focused on the products. This is a leadership development company. I believe this is what Justin said, some version of that. He goes, the products are a byproduct of developing leaders. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and they're amazing, and they work, and they do everything we say they're going to, and they can change your life. He says, but really for him, the reason he does it is like he has a passion for developing other leaders, right?
It's our best product
that can also develop
people.
Other leaders. Yeah.
So I say, yeah, the products are made. Everything you just said.
Yeah.
The best product is people.
Yeah.
Because people in their normal work environment, a lot of times do not have people pouring. Think of pouring into them. Think of how much people pay to go to a Tony Robbins weekend.
Yeah.
What is it? Like minimum 10 grand for the nosebleeds.
Yeah.
Right. and we give that to every team member, no matter whether they sell one product the whole year or they're one of the top sellers.
Yeah.
We're giving that to people. You should see Justin Prince shows up at all hours, and he's the founder of the company. I've never seen anything like it, right? But he'll show up just to speak into people, not at people. And that's a difference too.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of leadership things where you just feel like you're being talked at,
Yeah.
that you should be this way. It's very different when people feel spoken into.
Yeah.
It's not about being impressed. It's about being inspired. Being impressed doesn't create a situation where somebody that's feeling, maybe they've been through a traumatic situation like we talked about. Me coming out of that traumatic situation we just talked about, network marketing is what helped me grow into who I am today. Not just the struggle, but surrounding myself around people that wanted me to grow, that wanted to help me grow. I don't know where I would be today if I didn't fall into that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been not just transformational and making millions of dollars. That's great. Love it. But it's been transformational in just who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And so whether somebody makes a lot of money or a little, some people are like, oh, not everybody makes great money. No, not everybody does make great money, because some people aren't, some people treat it like a hobby. You treat it like a hobby, pays you like a hobby. But if you got all the personal growth that you could possibly imagine, what's that worth to you?
Yeah, that's well said. So let's pretend that my wife is sitting here in front of you and she's like, I want to learn more. Or perhaps some of the people listening to this podcast are like, I want to learn more. What is a practical way to engage with you and then ultimately get involved? Like, what is the roadmap of, hey, this sounds interesting, to I'm actually a member of the team, I'm actually building a team, I'm selling product? Can you articulate that for us?
Yeah, it's so simple. Reach out to Nate or I on Instagram or Facebook. Say, hey, I want to learn more. And then we're probably going to ask you a couple questions, which is, hey, tell me about yourself. What do you do for a living right now? Do you love what you do? Okay. Some people say, yeah, I do love what I do, but I'm not paid what I'm worth. That was me. I was a personal trainer. I still love that. I train people for free now because I love it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't paid what I was worth. When I started in network marketing, I doubled my income in 90 days being a personal trainer. So when I started to build my first business, I would talk to personal trainers. I'm like, do you want to double your income in 90 days? Wow. Well, people want to, they don't just want to be with us for 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
They want the nutrition piece of it too. And so it's super simple. It's just reaching out. We'll ask you a couple questions about yourself. And another question is, are you looking for an additional income source and to diversify income, or are you looking to replace your income? Because that's the beautiful thing about network marketing, is someone can make it a plan B to create another income stream. Maybe they love their job, but they're capped out and they don't want to quit their job, but they just want another income stream.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, we do that. Maybe you own a brick and mortar business where you want to increase your bottom line revenues, but you feel kind of tapped out with members and things like that, and you need a program or a system to bring in to increase bottom line revenues. Well, that's even a different situation. Or maybe you're someone that's like, man, I've been going to the Tony Robbins things and I hear a lot of people, I want to be a life coach. I'm like, where pays you to, nobody just looks up like, find me a life coach, right? Honestly, network marketing is where you find life coaches.
Yeah.
And so we'll ask a couple questions about, what are your goals? What are you looking for? What's your timeline? I think one of the most important things is having realistic expectations. Why do people quit network marketing? Because you can get in for a teeny bit, a little investment. Just setting up your podcast studio. How much did that cost you? Or just ballpark, just setting up a podcast studio, do a podcast.
$10,000 to $20,000.
$10,000 to $20,000, right? Couple $100 gets somebody into, I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
Right? So the less skin in the game you have, the easier it is to quit.
Yeah. Totally.
And so we like to set realistic expectations for someone. If they, how many hours are you wanting to put in, and how much income do you want to make? If somebody says, you know what, I want to make an extra $100,000 a year and I got 5 hours a week. And I'm like, can you show me where we can get that? Because I'm signing up. right? Like,
Yeah,
where do you work 5 hours a week and make 100,000? You just,
totally.
it's not realistic expectations. Also, you're growing a business from zero to something, right? And so when you're starting at zero, there is a funnel. You, you put leads and marketing in the top of the funnel. And then all funnels have about a 60 to 90 day lag time. So when people don't get wins right away, sometimes some people just get wins, like they're like, boom, they're going. Depends on the influence that they have.
Yeah.
Right. And people that already have influence, it just goes. Well, people that are learning influence, we gotta teach them to fill the pipeline. Still
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of people will quit. And then this is the ick factor. Oh, that stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
To me, it's not. That's the. I don't even like saying that word because I don't think it's that. I think it's that people aren't. It's a work program, and not everybody's willing to do it.
Yeah, totally. I think that's really well said. Well, Jen, this was amazing. I appreciate your vulnerability and talking about your story, particularly around domestic abuse. And I think it's awesome the life that you and Nate have built and the company that you're involved in. I think it's a really good company. I've been using the products now for 6 or 8 weeks, and I'm personally a fan. And we're going to talk about, potentially me joining as an affiliate or as I don't know what you would call me, but as a person, and
Partner.
seeing if we can help some other people achieve their wildest dreams and goals through Make Wellness. So
I love it.
I appreciate the time today.
I love it. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap.